So, this is something that I really want to touch on. In Kentucky, there was a couple who was given ankle monitors and placed on house arrest based on the coronavirus results that the woman in the couple got. So, you had a woman, she wanted to go visit her grandfather. So, being responsible, she went ahead and she took a COVID test. So she got tested for COVID-19 as a precaution. She was going to be seeing, like I said, her grandparents, her parents. They're older. And she did get a positive test, even though she was asymptomatic, so she had no symptoms. This was in Hardin County, and the health department asked her to sign some documents and agree to call them anytime that she left her house. So she did agree to self-quarantine, but she didn't want to she didn't want to sign the documents. The reason that she didn't want to sign the documents is that some of the wording on the paperwork she didn't agree to, so she was fine with the self-quarantine, but she didn't want to sign paperwork that had the wording that was on that paperwork, which is understandable. And I'll tell you what I think is more appropriate to do in those situations. But honestly, nothing. It's possible that situations like this are unavoidable. But let me just tell you, and I'll give my commentary at the end. So she didn't sign the documents, and so they texted her basically saying that they were going to escalate the situation and involve the police or law enforcement if she didn't comply with what they wanted as far as her signing the paperwork. So while she was home, her and her husband, they open the door, somebody comes to their door, and there are 8 people, 5 cars, people wearing suits and masks, and they're from the health department. And they have paperwork for her, her partner, and their daughter. And basically, they were given ankle monitors and put on house arrest so that if they go more than 200 feet from their home, the alarm will go off and they can be arrested. Now, the health department is claiming that she refused to be self-quarantined. I really don't think that, she did that. I think honestly she just didn't want to sign the paperwork. And here, this is what I'm going to say. Regardless, what's very disturbing about this is that these people were put on house arrest when they voluntarily went and got a test. So I think something that's very important for us to understand is when we go and we voluntarily engage the government, they are then able to take it to the next level. So, for example, there is something with police called consensual contact. This is when you are engaged in a consensual conversation with a police officer. That can quickly turn into detainment based on whatever answers you get them. So you could just think you're shooting the breeze with a police officer. They might approach you and be like, hey, are you having a good day? And next thing you know, you're being detained. Next thing you know, you're being arrested. This is actually something that they teach police officers in the first arrest and firearms course that they get, right, is escalating a situation from consensual to consensual contact to detainment. And I'm not going to tell people to not get tested. I wouldn't go get tested, especially not after this. But I would say take heed. This was a woman who clearly wanted to be responsible because she wasn't even willing to go visit her parents and grandparents without voluntarily getting tested. When she found out her results, she was willing to self-quarantine. But it wasn't good enough for the government. They wanted their paperwork signed. They wanted her to adhere to what they wanted. And when she wouldn't do everything she was told after her voluntary engagement with the government, they went ahead and put her on house arrest under threat of physical arrest if she violated further. They came to her home and put ankle bracelets on her and her family. So this is something to really think about. You know, all of this acquiescence to the COVID situation, it really bothers me. It really concerns me. Both bothers and concerns me because honestly, you guys, hey, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad if we allow the situation to escalate to the place that we aren't able to move freely in society. That something like this can happen through choosing to go get tested for COVID. You could end up in this situation. And, you know, I think a lot of this is allowed because of the fact that there's been very little pushback on being locked in our homes, on being forced to close our businesses. We've allowed the government to run amok. And, you know, whether you agree with what this lady did or not with regard to not signing the paperwork, at the end of the day, my thing is consensual contact. She went in, she was trying to do the right thing, and ultimately that backfired. And it's just some food for thought. I'm actually very disturbed by this story. And I think collectively we ought to be disturbed by stories like these when we hear them. I'll talk to you guys later.